Hey guys. Okay, it says I'm live. Okay, this might be one of the funniest places ever that I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live. But I am here, I'm in like an entryway from a restaurant back to the restrooms, and there was a chair. So the reason I'm doing this today is because I'm at an all-day retreat with a group, which has been amazing, a business group, sort of like Accelerate Your Business, and this is our third retreat where we're coming together for the end of the year, and it's been awesome. But so our lunchtime got pushed back a little, and you'll hear people coming and going. But I'm doing this live, and so we're going to be doing lesson 3 today. And today we're talking about the concept of writing it down. So we're gonna talk about writing it down in a couple different ways. So we started with mindset, and then we moved on to, can't think of lesson 2 right now, sorry. It's like a little frazzled, I think. But today it's a tactical thing. We're gonna talk about what is it that we need to do to feel more organized, to start claiming our time. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is super basic. And some of you may have mastered this, and others of you might be like, okay, I really should embrace this. But do you have a calendar? And I would encourage you, I know some people use a paper calendar. You want to use whatever works best for you. But as parents, as parent entrepreneurs, it has to be what works best for you and your family. So oftentimes that means that we need to be communicating our calendar to more people. It's not just about us. It's about us and our partner and our kids, and sometimes we're sharing it even beyond that if we have childcare. So thinking about how do you have your calendar set up. If it's only in paper format, that means it's probably only visible to you, and if changes happen, only you know about them. So I use Google Calendar. Some people use iCalendar. It really depends on, there's other apps, but I'm going to talk about Google Calendar and how I use it and how I think it would be good for people to implement. So I have a calendar for my work. My husband has a calendar for his work. We have a calendar for our family, and then I have a childcare calendar. Okay, so and they sort of go in that order. Like I look at my daily calendar for work all the time. I also look at my calendar for my kids' stuff all the time. If there's an event that I want both my husband and I to go to, I invite him to the event to make sure it's on his calendar. My kids, like when there's a birthday party, when there's an activity that they do, like swimming or some lesson, I put that on our family calendar so that both my husband and I know what's going on. We both have access to that calendar. My husband and I both have access to each other's work calendars just so that we have an idea of meetings and things going on throughout the day to know the other's obligation. That means that if there's a sick kid or if something comes up, we can say, oh, I know that they have a meeting with someone at that time. I think it's really important that we write things down and that we can share that information with each other because it makes our lives a lot easier. So for example, when we've had certain things, even sometimes when it's events that we want to do at night, I'll put them on the calendar so that, because sometimes I forget, like at night by the time I go to bed, we get our kids tucked in and I do some work, I forget to tell my husband, hey, I'm thinking in a couple of nights I'd like us to go to, especially the holidays, there's a lot of things going on. And so that way he'll say, oh, what's going on? I see this on the calendar. The other thing is that every Sunday night, my husband and I try to, and I won't say we always do it because we're not perfect, but we try to just look at this coming week. And I say like we just look at the week because as parents and with kids, our calendars change all the time. There's different events that have like soccer season's over and then it started, or things from my work that change and things for his work. Every week we have different things going on. And so it's important that we do this weekly check-in to be able to see what's going on. That way, I mean, we go down to like who's taking the kids to school each day, because for us it changes. We both share that responsibility. Sometimes I take the kids and sometimes he does. So that way we're able to look at who's got meetings right away or which days who takes the children. Then we can also take a look at what's going on in the evenings. Like, is there anything going on in the evenings outside of our ordinary schedule? And so I probably attend one event a week, maybe a networking event or something. And so that way he knows, like, he might need to be home a little earlier because I'm usually done working first. Maybe it's just letting him know, like, I'm gone, or he's got an event because he sometimes does them, but not as frequently as I do. So the idea of calendaring and sharing a calendar with your spouse is super important. So that's a broad thing on calendaring. The second part of this lesson is that I want you to actually, so we talked about, oh yeah, lesson 2, we talked about making your plan. So when you talk about making your plan, usually what people do is they have a calendar, and the only time they put things in their calendar, let's just talk about your work calendar now. The only time they put things in the calendar is when they're meeting someone. But I want you to reframe that. And I want you now to be thinking about your time with the intention of, what am I working on? So if you have, no matter how much time you have, if you have 1 hour, if you have 10 hours, I want you to say, what am I working on during that time? And I would like you to bucket it. So there's a lot of ways to do this. This could be where maybe if you like pen and paper better, go for it. I find it super powerful. So I leave a lot of times Mondays and Fridays are often my work on my business days. So in my calendar, I have those blocked out and nobody can schedule meetings those days. However, when I sit down on Monday morning and I have this master plan that we've talked about, I sit down and I bucket how much time I will work on each project that I'm doing to move my business forward. So some of it's admin, some of it's bookkeeping, but then a lot of it is work on my business. Now, if I just sit down and say, cool, it's a work day, I don't actually get much done. So what I really do is I say, okay, for the first hour, I'm gonna work on creating this copy. For the second hour, I'm gonna work on Facebook promo. For the third hour, for like this hour or like 20 minutes, I'm gonna do this. So I break it down to tasks with an end time. That helps me so much. I get so much more done. I have like this little I only have 15 more minutes to work on something and then I have to move on to my next task. I don't always finish everything. So, and I'm still in control. If I really want to stretch it out because I'm on a roll, great. But sometimes it also helps me keep things fresh because I have trouble just sitting and working on the same thing for 3 or 4 hours. So I would recommend that these are your 2 lessons for the day. So 1, sit down and look at your calendar and look at just the framework of how you budget your time for you and your family. Do you do this on paper? Do you do this online? Do you share your calendar with each other? Do you have a family calendar? Think about what's the framework that will work for you and your family and start getting it in place. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to take the chunks of time that you have and I want you to start assigning what tasks will happen. You can either do that in your online calendar if you're using one, or you can do that in the paper calendar, because I know sometimes people really love that tangible aspect of writing it and putting the thought in that day. So this is where you have to figure out what works for you and approach it as an experiment. This week I'm going to put it in my calendar ahead of time, see how that works. Next week I'm just going to sit down every morning or the day before and declare what I'm working on the next day. So you have the time where you're meeting people blocked in different spots, and then you fill in those gaps, and in between those, what will you work on? Okay? So that's your task for this coming week, is to write it down. So essentially you're writing down with intention how you're using your time, rather than just saying, I'm going to work. That is too general. Work on what? Okay, so come up with something. So those are your tasks for the day. Let me know what questions you have about calendaring. I think it's very powerful. There's also tips. I'll put a link in the comments, but I use Calendly. It's an app where people can schedule an appointment with me. It makes it even simpler for me to guard my boundaries. We'll talk about that later. But to keep my meetings with other people really, I get to set the parameters of when I can meet with them. The other thing is I use reminders in my calendar a lot. Sometimes it's like I need to pop up 10 minutes before this is going to happen that says, Danielle, don't forget sometimes it's like picking up another kid. It's so easy for me to get. Picking up another kid on the way to school, or don't forget that you have this event tomorrow, or don't forget for the tooth fairy. I mean, I do all these things. Like I pop-up reminders because it's so easy. I have a lot going on. It's really easy for me to get overwhelmed. So when I do this type of stuff, these little reminders in my calendar, I find it to be incredibly helpful. So let me know what questions you have regarding time, and we can dig in chatting about it. I will send out the lesson for people if they want to watch it. Again, you can either watch it on the live, write comments, or else put it on the blog. Okay, thanks guys. Have a great one. Bye-bye.